Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another Post-Maafa Reconstruction. My name is Tahuti Forever. I'm the architect of MelaNation. We are here today to discuss the plans that our company has for the future going forward. We're here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Arizona Mountain Standard Time. Miss Lizzie Woody will be joining us really soon. Miss Lizzie Woody, please introduce yourself. Are you there, Miss Lizzie? Miss Janvier, please.
Okay, am I on? Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Oh, cool. Am I introducing myself?
Yes.
Or are we on yet?
Yes.
Introduce yourself.
Yes. Janvier, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I am Marjorie M.J. Janvier, and I am the project manager for not Post-Maafa. I'm the host for Post-Maafa, the co-host, one of the co-hosts. I'm co-hosting with Lizzie Woody, and I am a comedian. I am an author, published author, and talk show host. I like to do so many different things. I could write a book about it. So I don't want to hold you that long. But anyway, I'm just so happy you're here today. It's a very good discussion. Don't go away. You don't want to miss this. It is so good. I'm trying to tell you now. Don't say I didn't tell you anything. Okay. So join us. Stay here.
Miss Lizzie Woody. Miss Lizzie Woody. I think her internet is having a delay. Let me go ahead and introduce the family to our app via this short commercial.
The emergence of an inspired event is now on the move, requiring all hands on deck. So here's why you should share. We have substantially invested in a systematic approach to Black economics. Our mission is to empower and uplift our community, both online and in the physical world where birds fly. Interestingly, your monthly vote steers the direction of the company. Introducing MelaNation, a cutting-edge TV and an internet platform. It's making its way to the world stage with over 400 pages of state-of-the-art features. Features include movie streaming, a production studio for influencers where your production will be displayed through the television, a dating site that can be accessed through the TV, a Google Maps-powered satellite mapping system for registered Black-owned businesses and entertainment, making it easier for you to locate the community near you, and much more. We're bringing everything the community needs under one roof in order to build the proper infrastructure across the nation. Learn more on the Facebook page, family. The time is now for your participation to shape the direction of this community-powered company.
Ashe, ashe, ashe. Miss Lizzie, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. If you can please introduce yourself.
Oh, yes, okay. Yes, sir. Good evening. Good evening to everyone. This is Lizzie Woody. Finally got my act together as far as the song. I have been in Arizona for a number of years, and my journey here has been working within my community, trying to make sure that, we work together, that we know what's going on in the community, and just to do what I can to be a resource to the community. But anyway, now we have MelaNation App, of which, wow, I'm so excited about it right now. And I'm hopefully you will be as well, because we're going to have a discussion about it. So welcome and enjoy the show. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, yes. So update, one of the exciting news that our company has just received, the updated version of the app. Now, the MelaNation app is going to be arriving to the public September 15th of 2027. However, we just received the alpha version. We're not ready to actually test it, but we received the front end of the app, and I can tell you now, it is extremely, extremely beautiful. It's gorgeous. It has everything that we want on it. We just have to fine tune a few things, dot a few I's, cross a few T's, and at which point we'll send the variation back to the developers, and they will send us the final version. And then once we have that final version, which will likely be within a couple of months, we'll approve that version and we'll move forward to the next stage of testing. So we're excited that we now have this beautiful app downloaded to our cell phones. Ms. Janvier, do you have that on your phone? You have to unmute yourself.
Yes, I do have it on my phone. Thank you.
Okay, well, what did you think about this new version?
I like it. But gosh, I like both of them. So, but yeah, I like the new version too. Yeah, I have to say I like it.
Yeah, so the new version has all of the features. The previous version had about half of the features, had about 22 features. This new version has 49 features. So yeah, and it's done correctly. It seems like the developers really listened to my direction and advice, and they did a really good job following those instructions. And the app is very beautiful, very, very beautiful. I'm definitely happy with it. Just some minor details that needs to be addressed, but it is a process. So just changing these minor details may take a couple of months before we receive a third version. And I'm really hoping that this third version will be the last version where we can go ahead and give that approval to go over into testing.
That would be nice.
Yes. So Ms. Janvier, can you go ahead and introduce the audience to the MelaNation.co?
I sure can. MelaNation.co is where you go to find out about the MelaNation app, which is coming out September
15th of 27.
Right, 2027.
That's Dion's birthday.
Right. I slipped my mind for a second. Every MelaNation starts with you. Mela Community is a powerful all-in-one platform designed to connect, empower, and elevate the global melanated community. From networking and business growth to content, events, and opportunities, everything lives in one ecosystem. And our next section that I'm gonna tell you about here is Mela. Okay, here we go. Mela Community is not just another social app. It's a digital nation where culture, commerce, and collaboration come together. Whether you're a creator, entrepreneur, professional, or community leader, this is your home.
Yes, indeed. And I was looking at the new version of the Mela Community, and it is fantastic. We finally have the coin generator where people can start earning points, which is very important because the point system for MelaNation allows you to move up on the leaderboard.
Mm-hmm. Okay, are we ready for Mela News? It's the next section. Okay, Mela News, a Post-Maafa reconstruction instrument. The Post-Maafa reconstruction phase begins with narrative sovereignty. After centuries of displacement, extraction, and distortion, our first responsibility is to reclaim the power to define reality for ourselves. Reconstruction cannot occur while stories are being told by, wait a minute, let me back up a little
outsiders, filtered through hostile systems, or reduced to spectacle. A people disconnected from their own narrative cannot coordinate their future. And this is very, very true. For centuries, we've been told how we should think, how we should act by people who don't have our best interests at heart.
Right. So a people disconnected from their own narrative cannot coordinate their future. Now we're going to go to the next section. It is the delegates, one of my favorite sections. MelaNation is a digital representation of the conscious community, placing the fate of the community back into the hands of the community itself. To achieve this, MelaNation is governed by a committee of delegates chosen directly by the people. Leadership is not appointed from above, nor concentrated in isolation. Delegates are selected through collective decision-making, funded and staffed by the community, and empowered only to the extent that they produce measurable positive impact. So they're just not getting a
Exactly.
free ride. They have to actually be doing their jobs.
Like I mentioned a moment ago, the coin generator is very important because it gives you a certain status on a leaderboard.
Right.
And if you want to become a delegate, you're going to need to have some type of status where people can see that you are dedicated to the melanated community. So when you apply or you run to become a delegate, that's going to be an important stat that people will be looking at.
Right. That is true. And our next section is movies. Oh, how much I like to watch movies. I'll spend the whole day being a couch potato watching movies. And so this is a core feature. We utilize entertainment as a strategic gateway to reach the community at large. Culture draws us in, but consciousness keeps us together. Through stories, through shared stories, music, and creativity, we gather the people, transforming attention into alignment and participation into purpose. Galvanizing the community is not a slogan, it's the mechanism of empowerment.
Yes. So we are using entertainment as a way to bring our community together. If a lot of people have subscriptions to a lot of different television networks, streaming services. So we want to make sure that we're offering that service as well. Let's say you come on to MelaNation and the only reason why you're coming is so that you can watch the movies that we have on our platform.
Right.
Well, that still stimulates our community. You're still supporting our community because the more people that we have watching our movies, that strengthens our company at large.
Right. So that's fine that you come just for movies.
Was that your last section?
Yeah, movies. Is there another section? No, I'm down to other features.
Okay, well, we can discuss other features.
Okay.
Can you scroll a little bit so we can see those other features? Yes, that's fine. Let me make this a little bigger. So we have the videos hub. If you can take the mouse off of there, so it'll scroll. Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
So we have the Mela Market, where you can buy and sell things just like any other marketplace.
Right.
We have courses. We have a job board where you can actually apply for jobs. You can actually put the application in through MelaNation. We have a video studio where you can create your own content, which will be loaded up onto the television because this app is downloadable to your Apple, Android, and to the television. There's another scroll lower. Can you scroll down?
A little bit. Okay. No problem.
Right there, yes. Little bit lower so I can see the bottom of it. Perfect. Okay, so you're able to place ads, business ads on our app as well. If you can move that mouse so I can see the next. Yes.
Yeah, that was messaging connect.
Messaging. Oh, okay. And then you have courses and learning where you can find teachers and you can just keep the mouse off.
Okay.
While it scrolls. So there's a lot of features. Like I was mentioning before, MelaNation, the previous version that we had only had about half of our features. But now we have the version downloaded to our phones that has almost 50 features. It has 49 features. I believe that's all the features that we're gonna be putting out. We may add one or two more features depending on if the public comes out and says, hey, you don't have this on the app. We may add one or two more features. But as it is, no one is telling us that we are missing anything. So
Well, that's good.
we may launch it with just the 49 features.
That's a lot. It's
Yes.
like overwhelming. There's something to do for everybody on this app.
This is true. Miss Lizzie Woody.
Yes, sir.
So we went over the app yesterday. How did you like the new version we have here?
Should I stop sharing now?
I loved it. I'm sorry?
I was saying, should I stop sharing now?
No, I loved it, and the fact that it represents the needs of the community.
Mhm.
And as you said, we have 49 features, but anything that we're missing, that could be added on. So, and as far as the general public, if you're watching, know that you could be up there, you could be a part of some of the features that's up there, and consider we have a whole year to build, a little over a year to build it, and plenty of time to figure out where you're going to be on the app. It's as far as services, as far as whatever you need.
Right. So we're just saying, get involved.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
I may have dropped Miss Janvier from the live. Hopefully she logs back in. At this time, I'll go ahead and I'll share the prototype that we have. So this is the prototype. The prototype does not have the full extent of the features that we are producing and providing to the community, but this is a good start. We've had this prototype for about a year now, but we've upgraded multiple times since that time. And since we've updated multiple times, the actual app looks a little different, but this is just to show you some of the basic features. So we're going to go over some of these basic features. So on the very top, what you see is MelaNews. Now, Ms. Janvier did explain the importance of MelaNews, allowing us to share our own stories from our own perspectives. Below MelaNews, what you'll see, well, let me explain something about MelaNews. MelaNews is going to have a anchor, a news host, who is going to be AI generated. So we'll be able to host anything live as events are happening. Let's say something in New York is transpiring and someone tells us, they make us aware, we'll be able to go live immediately and upload that information to MelaNews to share it with our audience. And we have the AI by the name of Mela, who will be able to explain the situation live.
That's great. That's
Right.
great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, there won't be any downtime in between any live news that needs to happen, that needs to be shared right away, because everything is happening digitally. Next, what we have is the scroll. Now, if you can see this, do you see the scroll movie?
I do.
Okay, great. As you can see, there's only maybe 10 items on that scroll that I was scrolling past. And the new version has, the scroll goes for, almost 50 different features. But on this scroll, you see posts, regular posts. Now with our posts, if you like someone's post, that generates coins for them, and that makes them higher on the leaderboard. So instead of posts, likes, and thumbs up being just for just for popularity. Now it's to a point that it affects them and their status in the community. They can then become assessors if they have more coins than everyone else. They can become an assessor, and if they're run for a delegate, we can see that how important their post has been to our community. We have MelaDating. Now, on the new version, MelaDating has 4 sections, not just this one section. The new
I saw that.
version, yes, yes. In fact, you know what? Maybe I can pull it up on my cell phone really quick.
4 sections. Ooh, I can find somebody quick.
I knew you were going to jump on that one.
Yes. So the new version, what it has is dating live. Actually, let me show. See if I can show this. So this is the app that we actually have on our phones. Okay. And I'm not sure if you can see, but there's 4 sections for dating.
Can't read it, but I can see it.
Right. So the new version has dating live. Now, dating live is where you can join someone in a live conversation and everyone can watch the conversation. We have the dating chat rooms. The chat rooms is a group of people who's agreed to conversate with each other, basically all at the same time. We have the dating shows. The dating shows is where one person is explaining who they are and other people are just watching that one person. So, and if you like that person, you can send them gifts and different things of that nature, and you can reach out to that person. So there's multiple aspects to MelaDating. Let's see what's next here.
Let me interject and just to add to the dating. They're like as you said, they're chat rooms, but there are certain chat rooms. I don't know if it was an example, but like for homebodies, people that just love being at home. Mm-hmm. Then you have the foodies, people that enjoy food, and fitness and outdoors, faith and value. So exactly. Those are things that you're providing.
Yes, you may have a chat room specifically for vegans, specifically for Christians. Mm-hmm. Different chat rooms for people who have certain ideologies that they think is important in finding a spouse. There'll just be a chat room specifically for those people.
Right. So I just keep my list and I'll find the right one in all those different chat rooms. I'm just joking. I'm not looking for anyone, so don't take me serious.
And of course, we have messaging. Mm-hmm. In that messaging, we have Mela TV, we have Mela News, we have the Mela Market, we have the delegates. You can create your own pages, and you can find your own allies and friends. So that's only maybe 12 of the features out of 50 features, out of 49 features. But when I scroll here to the side, go ahead, Miss Lizzie.
I was going to ask about the Mela News. Will there be some a version of local news, or how would that work as far as people here in Arizona?
So people can reach out to us in reference to situations that are happening that they believe are newsworthy. Mela News is going to be mainly discussing what's going on in the melanated community based on what people are uploading to us. Also, It's going to be updating people in reference to the direction our company is going in. So we're going to keep everyone informed, and they'll be able to reach out to us, and it's basically an open line of communication.
Mm-hmm. So anybody could just report what's happening in their area, and it'll be reported for everyone on MelaNation who's watching the news.
We'll have it curated where people are viewing what news is coming into our studio, and anything that we believe is newsworthy and we have time to air it, we'll air that information.
So we've got less than 5 minutes.
This is true. So funding is very, very, we want to be transparent. And if I click the funding on this, it's not really going to show the accurate. This is the very first version of the funding situation that we came out with, and I had to make a lot of corrections here. The new version is exemplary, so it's a beautiful thing. But basically, what it does is it shows how much money, how much total revenue we have coming in, and it shows what we're investing in. It shows how much our sales agents are making in commission, and it shows how much stimulus is going back into the community. That's the purpose of the funding. It's to be transparent, and only the users that are prime users are going to be able to see the transparency there.
So what are the prime users? What do they have that I don't have?
Well, you are a prime user.
I'm just joking. So,
but so when I say prime users, I'm talking about people who have verified that they are melanated users and they made it to the prime board. If I go over to, let's see, the leaderboard, you'll see that there's a collective board here, and then there's a prime board.
okay.
The prime board is full of the people who are able to give instructions, who are able to vote, who are able to become assessors. These people are able to become delegates, but they've gone through the process of the screening process to verify that they are melanated users.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about the delegate? I saw that there were like subscription plans.
2 minutes.
Oh yeah,
okay.
I can see the time.
Okay.
So you want to talk about the subscriptions or the delegates? That's two separate things.
Yeah, because I thought I was looking at delegates, and then I saw there were monthly plans. If you wanted to add Mela TV, Mela Market, maybe I was looking at it incorrectly, but
no, yes. So we'll go over here to subscriptions, and again, this has been updated as well, but the pricing is still about the same. So the way the subscriptions work, you can download the app for free, and you'll be able to get to use almost all the services. However, there are premium services that we use only for people that subscribe. And the plan is basically $20 a month, is $19.99. But you can also increase the value by upgrading your television service, upgrading your market service, upgrading your dating service, and you can update your Mela community service, which is not on this screen at the time.
Yeah.
But each of those have different values that adds, and it gives you a more premier service. But you don't have to actually subscribe to be a melanated user. But
$19.99 is not bad. That's a good price.
Yeah, and we want to mention that the stimulus that we give back to the community, it comes from these premier plans.
Right.
So as you're paying, you're increasing, you're strengthening MelaNation, and you're allowing us to invest more in our community. So,
right.
But we've now reached the MelaNomics segment. So we want to go ahead and switch gears. We have a very special guest, and I'll go ahead and switch over here to our special guest speaker. One moment.
Okay. This is a very good segment.
Peace, family. Welcome to the MelaNomics segment of the Post-Maafa Reconstruction. Let me say that again. Peace, family. Welcome to the MelaNomics segment of the Post-Maafa Reconstruction. We are here today with a good teacher and scholar by the name of Osir Imhotep. Please, Mr. Imhotep, introduce yourself to the family.
Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Firstly, I like to say thank you to you and your audience for having me on the program. And I look forward to the unfolding of our conversation today. But in terms of a little bit about myself, I am a computer scientist who also moonlights as an Africologist and a linguist. And what I try to do in this modern era is to link all of these concepts and methods and ideas and technologies into a neural network of sorts to help African people advance, more triumphantly into the future, if that helps.
Ashe. So can you tell us how you began name of Osir Imhotep. Please, Mr. Imhotep, introduce yourself to the family.
Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Firstly, I like to say thank you to you and your audience for having me on the program. And I look forward to the unfolding of our conversation today. But in terms of a little bit about myself, I am a computer scientist who also moonlights as an Africologist and linguist. And what I try to do in this modern era is to link all of these concepts and methods and ideas and technologies into a neural network of sorts to help African people advance, more triumphantly into the future, if that helps.
Ashe. So can you tell us how you began? What's your origins?
Well, I have many origins in terms of all the aspects of who I am and what I do. But a technical origin, I was born in Jacksonville, Florida. And from there, stayed there when I was, a toddler, whatever 4 years old is, and moved to New Orleans, where my dad is from. And then we moved to Houston. He found a job out there in Houston, and I was mainly grew up or my younger years in Houston, Texas. And then I went to high school in San Antonio, Texas, because my parents had divorced by then. But went to college in San Marcos, Texas, where I was studying accounting. Then I went to the University of Houston, where I did computer information systems, and stayed in Houston for a while, and then ended up moving to Philadelphia, where I reside now. So, so those are the locations that have shaped me to this day. So experience-wise, in those early years, I resided in predominantly European, quote unquote, white neighborhoods, so to speak, and went to white schooling. And as a young Black boy in the South, that can be a traumatizing experience on many different levels, right? And so even though I may be young to certain people's time scale, because I just turned 47 on July the 30th. So, I don't have the civil rights experience or growing up in the 70s, even though I was born in the last 6 months of the 70s. We still had racial contention in the 80s, to the point that even in sixth grade at Paul Revere Middle School that I went to, the middle schoolers, we would have race riots, you know what I'm saying? It'd be like the blacks and the Mexicans against the whites. And I recall, for example, like going to the bathroom and you'll see "go home" N-word with hard R, scrape into the mirrors and stuff like this. And you had to constantly fight these future Ku Klux Klan babies. So this is in the 80s. So whatever the tension was that was present, of course, in the 60s, 70s, and earlier. It was still present there in the 80s and early 90s. And I say this because this helps to shape my interest into Black people, Black culture, and history, because this is stuff that I didn't learn at home. Our parents was more of the school that we're not going to deal with that. They shouldn't have to deal with racism, and we need you to march into the future as equals and stuff like this. And plus, they just weren't on that time to be studying Black and African history. So the interest was there, because I would always wonder, we're learning about all of them, but we aren't learning about ourselves. And so a bit of that changed, and was more so fueled by I believe she either taught history or social studies. Her name was Mrs. Bird, and she may have had Creole roots in Louisiana, some light-skinned lady with quote unquote good hair from back in the days, but she was definitely a Black woman, right? So, but because she taught this, she didn't shy away from Africa, and she would talk about civilizations that originated there, and she had a little bit of conspiracy theory in her. So this was around the time of the first World War, the first Gulf War. So she'd be like, we in Houston, Texas, they're going to come, the terrorists is going to come here, so we got to get prepared. She had a little bit of that in it. But she started her class in terms of the geographical studies, with us learning about Africa and life originated in Africa. And so that really kind of set it off for me. And unfortunately, it wasn't too many teachers like her, after her, right? But, I came at a time, and she was president at the time, that she planted a seed. And so not too long after that, situations happen, divorces, family gets split. My mom's mom's side of the family is primarily located in San Antonio, Texas. So, when she left, she went back to San Antonio, and then I followed later, and then probably like a year or so later, my other brothers followed, right? So now this is my first time staying in predominantly Black spaces, right? So you get a feel for the culture and issues, and just everyday Blackness. And it's not that I didn't experience that at any time. It's just that now I'm immersed in Black culture. So you would think in a San Antonio, Texas, there's not many, there's no Black people there, but there's at least at the time, east side of San Antonio was predominantly Black. So I went to Sam Houston High School, did my 8th grade year in at Martin Luther King Middle School, and so had experiences there. There I became a Hebrew Israelite. I left the Hebrew Israelites once I got to college. When we was at Southwest Texas State University, they didn't have a Black Studies program. So the students had created organizations, and one specifically was called Kumasi. And that was basically a self-study research team. And because they were a student organization, of course, you can get funding, and they would utilize that funding to raise money to get speakers down. So they would, of course, bring like your Anthony Browders, your Naeem Akbars. I think they brought Dr. Ben one year, right? So you get hip to these guys. But then I went to the University of Houston, and they have an Africana Studies program there. So you can take formal courses in African American studies. But they also, because I was at the School of Business at the time, they also had an African studies. And what I didn't realize is that the African studies and the African American studies were two different programs. And I took the classes that was necessary for what I thought were for the African studies courses, but it wasn't. They were African American studies courses. They went under that wing. So I had to go back and take, the 12 hours of African studies courses. So, more money, more time, but beneficial in the end, come dealing with what I deal with, more frequently in this day and age. So, but it's through, the University of Houston and Africana Studies and Africology that I really started to hone in and get deeper into the studies of African people and culture and languages. That's where I, took my first Yoruba language course. I met the mother of my son, and just a whole bunch of life happened there. And so it was a process in terms of trying to weed out the Abrahamic and Eurocentric worldviews and frameworks, so I can properly immerse myself in African culture and languages. And as a result of that, I've been able to unlock certain things that many people may not be able to see because they do not have the Africological lens that will illuminate certain things, that will point you in a direction and say, look at this. This is important. Now compare this to this, and triangulate that way. And so that's what I've been able to do, throughout the years, and studied under many good scholars, work with many good scholars, and publish in these particular areas. And so my concentration has been really on African cultures, languages, philosophy, spirituality, and the like. And I've juxtaposed that with my studies in computer information systems, software development and engineering, and now artificial intelligence, and with fruitful results. So I hope I answered your question in a satisfactory way.
Yes, indeed, Ashe, Ashe. So, in your studies, what is one of the things that you would say was very influential, powerful thing that you've learned by studying the linguistics?
Well, it's the linguistics piece came in as a result of kind of two paths that kind of converged on each other. And the first one is, being introduced to Cheikh Anta Diop. And, in undergrad, when I would be studying his work would always come juxtaposed with, variations of ancient Egyptian words that existed in the Wolof language, right? And, at the time, I didn't have access to all of his books, but in the search for his books, and of course now you get introduced to Theophile Obenga and other scholars, you find that their works are primarily in French. So
right.
You have to kind of really access their works. There's scholars that many people may not be familiar with, like Oscar Profuma, Abu Bakr Musalam, right? Noam Ndiji, and others that that are in that space, but they primarily work in the French language. You know, even though their native language is whatever it is, they primarily write in French. So there's that, and then there's an organization in Houston, Texas. That was there was the Talking Drum. There was the Taseti African Historical Society, right? And this is a group of gentlemen who created this organization, you know, under the influence of Professor James Small and Dr. Ben, right? And so they come out of that Dr. Ben school and created this organization in Houston, Texas. And so they would bring scholars down as well, but they would also have their own. And so they've been to Egypt several times and, you know, involved in African culture in other various ways. But one of the kind of tools that they would use was linguistics. Now, looking back, they weren't necessarily the best in terms of, you know, formal linguistics, but they also planted that seed that, you know, we need to look into the etymology of words and the meanings of words and how they're used in relationship to the script and the like. So it's really kind of those two things in addition. So that's kind of like the foundation. But then there is the stage where I'm introduced to the works of Dr. Mubabinge Bilolo, another Francophone scholar out of the Democratic Republic of Congo, out of the Daopian school. But, you know, what's different about him is while other scholars were, with the exception of Diop, were mainly doing comparative work, like here's ancient Egyptian, and then here's, you know, this word in these various languages across the continent of Africa. He was primarily just using his own language, which is Chiluba, right? And he would experiment in a way that it was able to kind of unlock certain aspects of the ancient Egyptian language that you couldn't have done, you know what I'm saying, without that concentration using one language. So, you know, I don't know if his argument that 85% of Chiluba is the ancient Egyptian language, but there is a very high number of Chiluba words that match ancient Egyptian forms, right? So, so reaching out to him and, you know, getting insight into his methods, and then me combining, because at the same time, now I'm more formally studying historical comparative linguistics. So I can see where he kind of deviates a little bit from the path, and in others where he's more traditional and conservative in terms of the methodology. So, you know, after doing my own test and kind of studying the language, I've utilized Chiluba as kind of my base language to do my studies. I've really kind of since used, for a lack of a better term or phrase, the usual suspects. You know, so my usual language suspects are Yoruba language, Kikongo, Chiluba, Collagen, which is a Nilotic language out in Kenya, and isiZulu in South Africa, right? So those five, I use other languages, but those are my five that, you know, that I'm going to be using these in the works, and all the other languages are just support languages, right? So it's really kind of this interweaving of trying to understand, because at some point, I can't tell you when, I just decided that, you know what, in terms of one of my contributions in this space, I want to dive more deeply into the major concepts of ancient Egypt and to utilize modern African languages and cultures to help us better understand the ancient Egyptian concepts as a methodology for understanding ancient Egypt, right? Because Egypt doesn't, they wrote for people of their time that they expected to understand the context and the nuance for what's going on. So they, I believe in their minds, they didn't anticipate that they would no longer be a civilization, that they would get conquered by, you know, the Greeks and the Romans and the Persians and later the Arabs, and that the language would be Arabic, and that they would lose the language and access to reading the hieroglyphs on the walls and the papyri. So they didn't explain things. You know, you have the concept, you can, if you can read the text in the way that we understand it today, you get a semblance of what the stuff means, but you don't have that real underlying African nuance that you would get if you were able to access a living tradition. And so as a methodology for trying to help us to understand what is going on in ancient Kemet in these areas, in these specific areas in which we're researching, then I look to the modern languages and the African survivals even within African cultures, because we all know that now the colonialism has greatly shaped a lot of African cultures. So certain things they don't hold on to or do anymore. But luckily, some of it has been recorded. So, you know, we can look at, you know, certain practices and things that they've done in the past that we can look to now and compare to the ancient Egyptian, even if they don't they no longer have that practice. So I hope that helps.
Indeed. So I definitely wanted our audience to understand who you are and your background.
Okay.
As far as a linguist and things that you've studied and basically your teachers and everything that you've described thus far. Here at the Post-Maafa Reconstruction, what we're focusing on is community building. And I see you as a pillar in the community, the Kemetic community, the conscious community at large, the Black community. And, you know, I see you and I follow your story and your teachings. Why is the community important to you?
Well, it's important. There's a default answer and then what I've come to understand answer, right? So the default answer, of course, I was born into the community. And so, you know, I share the same ancestors that people in my community have. So so as a result of that, you know, those going back to what I stated at the beginning in terms of my early part of my childhood, growing up in these European hostile spaces, they made it clear that, you know, we ain't them, and, you know, we would not be equal to them. And they tried everything from just systematic to microaggression things to let us know what our place is. And so what they don't understand is that creates a situation where an Osir Imhotep is born. Because, you know, it's like when you tell a child that, you know, don't do this, it automatically sparks an interest in them to want to do it more, you know, because it's like, well, why can't I do that, so why can't I look to Africa? What is it about Africa that y'all don't want us to know, right? And in African American culture and history and stuff, why don't we learn about these things and these people? So excuse me as I'm moving some things from behind me. So the growing up in these spaces and then moving to a predominantly Black space, I noticed the gap in education and resources from the neighborhood in which I lived, in my early years on the west side of Houston. For those who are from Houston, they'll know the area in terms of Briar Forest, Richmond, Galleria area, like that area. And then going to the east side of San Antonio. Well, we don't have any of that stuff that you would find on the west side of Houston, at least back then when I was in the early 90s while I was there. So this is it. You see the discrepancies on the distribution of resources, the presence of resources, the quality of education and the like. So now you're asking questions. Well, how did this be? Right. And so you run into elders in the community who have been active in the community in San Antonio, and they hip you to some things, and they're more politically oriented than culturally oriented, but it's still an education that you come to value. And you see the benefits of honing those relationships. And so it is being steeped in the community, seeing the disparities in the community. So we come from, we weren't, if we were middle class, we were like the barely made it to middle class, right? But after the divorce, mom didn't work all this time period. That she was a stay-at-home mom, so she didn't have, she came from because I believe they met in the military, so they both were in the Navy, right? So she didn't go to college, so this put her in a position where she really couldn't find any like high-paying jobs. And keep in mind, she's a single mother of 5 boys, right? And so, you come from this area where the Galleria Mall is, and again, it's a reference for people who know Houston. They'll know the area and what I'm talking about. And then moving to the East Terrace housing projects, right? It's such a drastic change, what I'm saying, in culture and attitude and values, in resources and just everything. So living in these extremes, it puts something in you to, you have more sympathy, you have more empathy for the community. You now your eyes are being open to the systematic nature of how your people got into these positions in the first place. And so when you're doing your education and stuff, now you're looking for ways on how to improve the community. What are the initial causal events that have produced these qualitative effects in all these areas of life, right? And how, so then you ask, well, how can I make a contribution to at least, Black people finding a victory over one of these, life's hurdles that we face, right? So this is how it all comes to be. So it's like, it's almost destined, like, regardless to whatever it is I've been through, my vision for the future, it was necessary for me to go through and see those things so that I can get a better and full understanding of how to approach these particular possible solutions to the ailment. And over the years, I've come to realize that, of course, it's a systematic thing, but this is also a cultural thing. And so I know that, you know, at one point, the Black Panther Party in California and the US organization, you know, had clashes over ideology, you know, in terms of the cultural versus the, you know, political. And, you know, me being a youth studying this stuff in hindsight is one of those situations where it's like, it's obvious that it's both. I don't see what the conflict was between these people, just like in the same way that we look at W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, you know, right? In terms of it's always both and, you know, it's not either or, right? So, but the cultural piece is very important, because once I started studying African cultures, I started realizing what it is that we actually lost as a result of the transatlantic slave holocaust. Yeah. And once you realize what you've lost, you know, you look at what we've developed, you know, everything is reactionary for us here, but we've never had time to really fully develop culture.
That's right.
Because too many other outside influences have shaped, and they've, to a certain capacity, they've served us well, but they also contributed to the anti-Africanness, the anti-Blackness that plagues the Black community and prevents us from moving into larger spaces, more sovereign spaces, right? So that's why I've been looking at the cultural piece and digging into the underlying philosophy, because the goal is to create a culture that is uncolonizable.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Great.
One thing that you understand about culture when you start studying it is that culture is done on purpose. It's not something that accidentally is you stumble upon, right? It doesn't fall from the sky. A community gets together and realizes its issues, and they put their best minds together to create solutions, algorithms, and institutions to solve these particular problems. That's where culture comes from. And each culture that is a viable, what I call a pro culture, I have three distinct articulations of culture. I say that you have a pro culture, or what I call a go culture, you have an unculture, and then you have an anti-culture. So there are many communities that have what I call go or pro cultures. Mm-hmm. And one of the distinguishing things about a pro and go culture is they have an ideal human being in mind. They have a vision what it means to be an ideal human being that would serve their community. And they create culture and institutions around that ideal to help develop those human beings to become the personifications of this abstract ideal human being, right? An unculture is a population that has aspects of a full go culture, but they're unorganized. So it's almost like if you, the analogy that I use is that if you stumble upon a steering wheel, and then you have two tires, you have one axle, you have a random back seat, and then you have a gas tank, right? You have elements of a car, but that's not a car, right? You can't drive nowhere because it's not systematically attached. All the components are not present, and they're not systematically connected that you can go somewhere and utilize it for whatever you need, you normally use a motor vehicle for.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have what I call an anti-culture, and that is everything that is about that population's social habits is anti-culture, right? That can exist as a subculture within a culture, or it can exist as the entire culture. Now,
Wait, can you explain that one more time?
An anti-culture is a culture whose is primary values, its primary sets of habits and behaviors are anti-culture. They do not promote the development of vital human beings in human beingness. Like a pro or go culture, they're what I call humanocentric. They're human being centric, and everything is to bring out the best of what it means to be human.
Mm-hmm.
And anti-culture is the reverse. So you really don't pay attention to it in the United States, but like when adults talk to you when you were a kid, the first thing that they ask you is, well, what do you want to be when you grow up in terms of your occupation?
Mm-hmm.
As if what you do as an occupation is like the end all be all. People identify with their occupation. So
Mm-hmm.
this is not humanocentric. And to an extent, like even when we meet each other, you know, in a Eurocentric context, the first thing that they ask you is, what do you do? And in other words, what is your occupation? Because they want to see how much level of respect they want to give you based upon your occupation.
Right.
Right? Is not human. And then of course, you know, you can't have a goal pro culture if your economy is based on slavery, if your economy is based on Jim Crow, if all the laws are to suppress the advancement of human beings within your jurisdiction, where you sanction assassinations, political assassinations, because they disagree with your politics and your value systems that you created to oppress them, right? That's an anti-culture. So this is why it's hard for European Americans, a lot of them, to understand what it means when we talk about equality. See, African people in the United States, we've lost the language that we spoke, our ancestors spoke.
Right.
But there's a phenomenon in linguistics that we call a semantics. And a semantics is the underlying semantic association that a population maps to words. So you may lose the actual word for something, but you still retain the semantic association. So you can find a similar word in another language that you don't speak your ancestral language to replace, because you're trying to still articulate the underlying semantics that is in your mind. So a good example of that is, like when I used to run track in high school, and you would run past somebody, excuse my language, but we would be like, man, I ate your ass up on that track. Right? Or you got ate up and da 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 da. That didn't come out of nowhere. In African languages, the words for to eat are used to convey being defeated.
Devoured.
You get it?
Yeah.
So even though, you know, we lost whatever word, you know, like ja, you know, in many of the West African languages for to eat and consume and defeat, the semantics is still present, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I
so
devoured you.
yeah, exactly, you know, you got ate up and, you know, so, and even sisters now, you know, oh, she ate. You know, they had to have the fingers, you know what I'm saying, with oh so-and-so ate, da 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 da, right? Because that's the nature of the semantics of these descendants of enslaved Africans, right? Who lost the official language, but in many cases kept certain vocabulary words, but ultimately the underlying semantics. Saying all that to say, long way to get to this particular segment, is that, you know, we come from societies where the expectation is that there is a functional level of equity and equality amongst the genders and amongst the people in the society. So we've always been fighting for that since we got here. But that's not a concept that they understand in Europe. They only understand classism, and this class, you know, is above all the other classes. And all, if you study European history, that's all it is that it's wars being fought over who can now be the dominant ruling class of the peasants, never for equality. You know, they talk about democracy and voting, like, you know, it's never for everyone. It's always only for an elite.
Right.
So that's why, you know, every man is created equal. They weren't talking about us. They were talking about them.
Yeah.
And they didn't want everybody to vote. So no women, no people who were not of the land ownership. They have an anti-culture. They don't understand this. So when you have these dark-skinned, you know, Negroes from the continent of Africa demanding equality, they may not have had the word ma'at in their vocabulary, but they had the semantics because they come from cultures where this is the understanding. This is the culture. They come from pro-go cultures, and now they're existing in anti-human, anti-African spaces.
And you know, when you say that, it makes me think about how people say, yeah, you can take them out the country, but you can't take the country out of the
country at all, you know. And so it's just a way of life. And of course, we were able to retain certain of those habits and ideas because they didn't want us around them. So the enslaved Africans were forced to be amongst each other. And this is what, you know, and then when we got so-called freedom, they put laws in place where you couldn't live next to them. Right. So you're still in a social environment, no matter what the race was, until integration. And we, you know, white ice water was colder than ours. A different conversation for a different time. But, you know, we were able to retain those things because we were always amongst each other.
Right. They put us in the slave quarters.
Exactly. So you can be yourself. You can be the culture. You can hold on to those things, even if you didn't have the necessary vocabulary to articulate it. Mm-hmm. But now we're losing recipes because too many of us believe that existing in those spaces with Europeans is better for us. And our children and their children now growing up amongst them, but have no connection to the culture. And they don't understand certain things about us. And now we've gotten to the point in modern time where we're not even Black. The slave trade didn't happen. Where they're anti-African. You know, they want to be copper colored now. You know, so they call themselves FBA, but they're saying they're copper colored indigenous folks, right? So why didn't you call it, you know, FCA, you know, or FCCA, you know, the you know, foundational copper colored, you know, Americans, right? The
How do you feel about that term?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
How do you feel about the term Black? How do you feel about that term being applied towards melanated people?
It is not our semantics. Because when you come from a pro and go culture, how you identify yourself historically deals with your relationship to God and nature, or the character of your people. It's just like when, for example, when the so-called, you know, after the Berlin Conference of 1884, 1885, you know, December and January 1884, 1885, the Europeans marked territories and borders around Africa. And so there's a place that was called Upper Volta at one point. And, you know, once they got their independence, they renamed it to Burkina Faso. And the meaning of that is the land of the upright people. So you see, when they named themselves, it wasn't based on their physical features.
Right.
Because Blackness is only relevant to those who are quote unquote not Black. That was our Blackness was for them to describe us to them, to the rest of them back home. That's how you get Sudan and Ethiopian and all these other particular names, right? And Negro and Negro and all these other terms. These aren't names we use for ourselves. Because it makes no sense when everybody else around us is the same color. Who are we distinguishing ourselves from, right? Now, I get it as an operational concept in the modern area, in the modern era, to get us to rally behind a common feature, right? So it was really just a sea of dark-skinned folks. But now that we've been here in the United States and places like Brazil, and we've been intermingling with a lot of us forcefully in the early in the enslavement period, and then in more recent times voluntarily, it has changed the shape. I mean, the morphology, the shape of the people, as well as the skin color. So now blackness is an abstraction more so than a physical description, right? Because who are we going to say Elijah Muhammad's not black, and Louis Farrakhan and Halle Berry and Albie Shore, whatever. It's now it's encompassing more than that. But if we're going to rally together, it has to be something beyond skin color, and we're going to have to find an identity that speaks to the essence of who we are in our spirit, and move on from there.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So what? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's like what I'm hearing you say. In my mind, it's from the time period of the enslavement, because people wanted to live in the White House. I mean, the White House, the big house. And they didn't want to work in the field from sundown to sun, from sun up to sundown. So now people want to be in the big house. They still want to be in the big house, which is around Caucasians, because they have more money. They live in a nice neighborhood. There's no one going around being no gang members up there. So they still want to go to the big house.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to adjust this light.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
And
yeah, this is true. So when I looked up,
it's just that mentality has been passed down generation.
What I was saying is that when I looked up
there's a delay on both of y'all ends for each other.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
When I looked up the origins of classifying people as white and black, it said that it originated with the transatlantic slave trade, or in that time period of when they wanted to distinguish who could be enslaved and who could be the slave master.
Yeah, that's how a lot of traditional enemies in Europe became white, because like with the Scot-Irish and the Italians, for example, they weren't considered whites. And the I'm sorry, this lighted, the battery went out, and I'm trying to, it doesn't look like it's charging and let me use it at the same time, so I have to let it charge. But anyway, I'm sorry. So they use the common Europeanness, labeled it whiteness, as the rallying cry, saying to be able to utilize the poor whites to make sure that there was a buffer between African freedom and mobility, and white people in general. But it actually goes back further than that. It may not have been a system of whiteness and white supremacy as it matured during the transatlantic slave Holocaust, but the your kind of earliest is with the biblical text and with the Greek text, right? So when the Greeks was coming into Egypt, they were describing the Egyptians as black. They use the word, melos, the same root where we get, melanin and, from, and but melos and, mela is an Indo-European word for black and dark, right? So they describe them as blacks. They use Ethiops for the Sudanese because they were a lot darker Like you know, when you get to Sudan and you start seeing black people that are actually blue, that's a different. You got to call them Ethiops. You know, like the burnt, like it's a rich blackness. So in Egypt is more like during their time is like, you know, yaw color, right? It's just a bronze, bright to reddish, dark reddish color. Like that's the color of the primary ancient Egyptians. So that was the melas and dark. But once you got into Sudan and you seen them tall Dinka and New Ears, and it was just a rich, like when you go to Senegal and you see how just rich and black they are, that's a totally different black, right? So they had to call them a different name. But you start to get this distinction in Greco Roman times and in the biblical times. So that's one of the first things that they mention when you know, describing the quote unquote Ethiopians again, right? Like that was a distinguishing marker for them. So but racism in general really kind of originates as a system and as a paradigm with the biblical tradition with the Israelites. It doesn't get its full maturation until, you know, the Arabs come along and then of course the Indo-Europeans and the slave trade. So
I see. Yeah, so we use the term Maafa when we're referring to what you call the transatlantic Holocaust.
yeah.
And I know we were talking about FBA and the different ideologies they may have.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say would be the best way to identify the melanated community?
Okay, so I've wrestled with this question before, and so this is, you know, during that time period is when I developed a scholarship for identity and the like. And I wrote a book way back in 2007, 2008 called The Bacala of North America. And I suggested that we use the word Bacala, kala being the root. It's a word, kala is a word for blackness in charcoal, and ba is just a plural prefix. It's like adding S in English to make something plural. So the boy versus the boys, right? So an individual will be a mukala. I have since changed my suggestion, and I'm going to have to update that text because it's still rooted in color association with the first term. So, but I have settled on a new term called the root of it is Nkole, or you can say Nkola, right? Still the same kind of consonantal structure, but it's a different set of vowels and with the N agent prefix. So the word Nkole, now keep in mind, this is in context of still in the realm of how did African people name themselves before colonialism? What was the underlying philosophy and the goals of a name, right? So there's various answers to that, but they include, of course, their associations with the divine and God and nature. And God and nature is really kind of one and the same in traditional African spaces. And or it was a goal to be achieved. Remember I said that there's an ideal human being. Or it just spoke to a characteristic or an essence of who you are, or the idea of the population. So like when they changed the name from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, right? The land of the upright people. They're at once saying that this is the character and the expectations of everyone here. That, you know, what we value the most is character. and honesty and being truthful and having integrity. And so their ideal human being is someone who has great integrity, someone who is honest and trustworthy. So it is at once a goal, an aspiration for the development of a human being, and we're at once declaring that this is the characteristic of the people who live in this territory, right? So when I looked at African American people, and many people don't know that Dr. Wade Nobles has already given a list of what characterizes, African American people, right? Like these 8 precepts and 9 other characteristics, that he's put together. And I'm making, to get the list, I can pull it up and name it. But looking at that, I was like, one of our major strengths is our strength and our power, our untapped power and creative essence, right? So this is where Nkole comes in, because Nkole is the more ancestral variant of what was modified as a result of natural language change in ancient Egyptian as Necher for the deity. The word Kole comes from a verb that means to act or to do, to create, to make, to manufacture, to manifest. As a noun in its nominal form, that's where the N prefix comes in, it becomes an agent. It becomes a word for it, in a more abstract, the word for power and energy, but it's also the word for an eminent or powerful person. And it's also the word that they use to reference God and deity, just like in ancient Egypt, right? So if you are a wealthy person of integrity and you use your resources for the advancement of the community, you can, in the Congo region, you can petition to be part of a fraternal order called the Bukoles. And it still has that root, the Kole, so the Bua Bakole, it's the Bakole, I should say, because that's the human plural prefix, the Bakole. And an individual will be a Mukole, right? And these are individuals who have demonstrated that they not only they are able to accumulate resources, but they have the open heart to share their resources and help others. That's the criterion to be in the fraternal order. And I say fraternal for a lack of a better term, because women can also be, Bakole. So it's not just a literal fraternal, and there's not a separate sorority in a sense, but for a lack of a better term in terms of the organization, I say fraternal so that people can understand that it's not open to everyone, right? But that root is applied, various ways across, Bantu speaking Africa. And, there's a book that I would recommend your audience to read if they can get a hold of it, because it's out of print. But hopefully you can go to a library. It is the Bantu speaking heritage of the United States, and it talks about how the large influence Bantu culture, Bantu speaking people, coming as a result of the transatlantic slave holocaust from places like Congo, Cameroon, Angola, etc., have had on the United States, right? So this is part of your heritage. So I'm not drawing something saying, oh, this, looks cool over there, but you have no relation. these are words you would have been using, you know, in your native country back home, or variants of it. And so there's cognates amongst Yoruba, there's cognates amongst Wolof, Senegalese speakers, and the like. So when I look for a name for African Americans, I'm like, and I looked at the analysis of the characteristics of African American people. For me, the Bayankole was a perfect name that described us, but also spoke to a goal, and, you know, as a North Star. So, you know, what is it? You know, I have this this program I'm developing, which is really a question, but it asks, what does it mean to be king? And we're developing it to be a kind of a youth development program and organization with the focus on, you know, young men. And so I don't know nothing about ladies and developing women. I won't pretend that I do, you know what I'm saying? So my focus, I know there's a need for young men to understand what it means to be a man within an African-centered context. And you know, some of the stuff that we described is part of that process. So what it means to be king is that, because that same word is used for words for like pillar or pole. And in traditional Africa, they would use that symbol, they would use that as a symbol for the king, right? Because the king is like a father to the community. Like that's the metaphor that is used. But they're also the central pillar. So what that means is, if you look at a traditional African house or hut, right, it is built around a single pole that exists in the center, you know, of the house. So they use that as a metaphor for the king. He's the central pillar that holds up the house. So the house now being the community, the state, the village, the city, whatever that is. And so the metaphor is used like, this is somebody of integrity that we can lean on, who is reliable, that the community won't fall and crumble.
Right. Let me ask you another question here. So you gave us the definition of Bayankole.
Mm-hmm.
Who would be included as a Bayankole?
That would be for African Americans. Now, I could have thought of other names, separate names for other groups, but because I don't belong to those groups, I don't want to insert and try to take away agency from them naming themselves, right, in that specific way. So I want to use this as a kind of a benchmark for others who want to reevaluate how they understand themselves and to find African words and languages to describe themselves as a people, right? So I'm kind of like the test with the African Americans. So this would be the descendants of anyone who was enslaved here in the United States, you know.
Okay.
And so that, of course, you know, you have people who come from the Caribbean, who will marry an African American man or woman. You know, their children would be Nkole because they're a descendant of someone who was enslaved here in the United States. Right now, the bigger question is, you know, like for African people, because there's a discrepancy on what do you know, the name Africa, what does it mean? Where did it come from? Right? Like it's been a big debate over the years. And so what I've done is also suggested a name for Africa, and that is Konda. But with the prefix Bu, like how you have Buganda, it's been reduced now in the modern times to Uganda. But that U comes from Bu. It's and that also existed in ancient Egypt as well as a abstract prefix for spaces, and so it will be called Bukanda, and
Bukongo or Bukanda?
Bukanda.
Okay.
And the reason why I chose Kanda, again, when I was researching for the name Kemet, I found cognates in other languages. So you'll find in a few with the form that you find in ancient Egypt, and that is with Kim or Kam, right? But others have the K and then consonant structure. So that's your Congas and Congos. Like the word Congo is cognate with the word Kemet. So when you go to the Congo, you're going to Kemet. It's just a dialect, it's a different dialectical variation of the same word. But there's also the Kandas and Gandas. But that form, which is cognate with Kemet, which is cognate with Congo, is what dominates the continent in terms of land that's named after that. So you have Kam, Kum, Kim, and then you have like Kanda, Ganda, and then you have like the Congos, Conga, right? Those are the three dominant forms of the variation of the word Kemet across Africa. So when I'm saying, and I'm also taking advantage of the name Wakanda, because that is also another variation of the word. And so it's not a place name that is like a state, but you still find places like in Southeast Africa called Wakanda. They're big farmlands, right? And so go ahead.
When talking about people of the Caribbeans and like Jamaica, that would be Bukanda, Bukandans.
We will all would be Bukandians, to add the English suffix. But we will all, like you would be like your, because we got to understand the layers. So, as African people, you would be a Mukanda, right? Because Mu is the singular prefix to denote a singular human being. So a Mukanda. And then you have the plural. So when we're talking about the collective, that's when you use Ba. So like when I talk about a like Muba Benge Balolo, he is a Muluba as an individual, but he belongs to the Baluba people. When we talk about the Ba Congo people, we're kind of saying people twice. It's like the people, the people Congo people. if I was saying Bakongo, so that's what that literally means. But so that will be just the overall, Pan-African term, and then you would name like your individual, like if you're Jamaican or you're Haitian, whatever you decide is appropriate for you. And that, as African Americans, we would be the Ba and Kole. That would be our tribe, so to speak, our ethnic group. And but you as an individual, you would be a Muankala or Muankole, I should say.
Awesome. I've asked people that same question as far as what's the best way to identify the melanated community, and that was definitely the most detailed answer. And I'm actually going to rewatch this recording because I haven't been able to. I'm going to take notes from what you were saying. That being said, I'm going to ask a couple more questions before we end our live.
All right.
What would you say is the most important step to the beginning, the healing process for our community?
Well, just like what they say in like an AA meeting or something like that, is recognizing that you do have a problem, or that there is a problem, right? So once you recognize that there is a problem, of course, well, what is the problem? Identifying what the problems are. And So then you have to identify, okay, are these problems existing on larger scale systematic situations or institutions, and or is this something that's more individualistic, more localized, like in terms with family, like relationships with family, right? Because you could have had trauma as a result of your relationships or lack thereof with your immediate family, which shapes, you know, how you move in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then from there it is looking for programs, text, and things that address your issues or the larger issues at hand, right? And then start implementing in your own personal life the strategies that have been suggested. You know, you may have to, especially if it's something that is more localized to you and not more in a larger African American sense. You know, find a competent, in my personal opinion, African-centered therapist, right? Who will understand that larger context and how that shows up localized in your life, right? And so you can explain and they can provide you with some, you know, some more ready-made strategies and suggestions for text and stuff that you got to read, because it really just depends on what the nature of the problem is, right? You may have had a good or a quote unquote good childhood, but you existed in spaces that reinforced an idea that, you know, you didn't belong in those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So you weren't thinking along the path of, I can do these greater things. I can create these viable businesses and or technologies or something to this nature, or that I can have this financial level of security, right? And so you may need to heal in the sense of developing your confidence in yourself that you can go into those spaces and fail and expand and grow in there without being intimidated enough that you don't even try, right? So it's not nothing to where that you can't find a good husband or you can't find a good wife or something like this, or you can't or anything like that, or because you have trust issues because da da da. You know, you may be good in that space, but it may show up in a different space. So there's healing that can happen in that way. And so, but regardless, you're going to have to fortify your mind and increase your capacity for love,
Right.
in terms of community, in terms of history, and loving yourself and appreciating the diversity of your community and being able to embrace that, and understanding the traumas that exist today have a direct result of issues that happened 400 years ago as a result of the transatlantic slave holocaust.
Exactly.
That's one of the good things about education. Education, it should help you to empathize with others and understand where they're coming from, even though they may not have the same level of understanding that you may have about certain issues.
Mhm.
So you got to, part of the healing process is having patience not only with yourself, but with others, and understanding that people develop at different stages of their life.
That's true.
You know, so like I'm 47 right now. And I remember like in my early 30s, I would be teaching and doing certain things, and I would have elders in their 60s and 70s, you know, coming to me asking questions and saying how much that I have helped to shape their understanding. And I'm like, y'all are elders. But they was like, well, I understand that, and I may have more knowledge and stuff than you in other areas, but I didn't come into the knowledge of myself until like age 55 until age 60, right? So the roles have reversed, where like I would, in normal circumstances, I'm learning and being mentored by them. They, in this space at least, I'm mentoring and teaching them. And so you got to understand that when you're doing this work, you got to understand that people develop differently at different stages of their life. So
Right.
it will help you to be patient and to remember where you were, especially for younger folks at their age. So what we're trying to do now is to help people get to where we are in terms of our understanding and love for self earlier, so they don't have to wait until they're 55 to discover that they Black and come from Africa, and our people have done all these great things, right? So that's you know, there's many different first steps, but the first step is recognizing that there is an issue, and then you consciously seeking out help in those areas for yourself. So, you know, if you can get into some kind of therapy, do that, but also, you know, start getting into a number of books, you know, like, for example, what's her, DeGroy, post-traumatic slave syndrome, right?
Joyce.
That's a good text. Like if you're trying to understand like African spirituality, I'm writing a text called, you know, An Introduction to Kimoyo, but that's not going to be out until 2027. But from a primary standpoint, you can read something like the late Dr. Malidoma Somé, who wrote Of Water and the Spirit, right? You may need some more general, but that's something that's more specific to the Daguerre people in Burkina Faso. But it'll give you some insight, again, of what we lost as a result of the transit slave Holocaust, but also healing strategies. And with that being said, I would have to recommend another text by his then wife, who is now also an ancestor, and that's Sabonfu Somé. And it's called The Spirit of Intimacy, right? So you're getting an understanding of the nature of relationships from a Daguerre perspective in Burkina Faso, and solutions that they would do when there would be conflicts in a relationship. And you got to understand that at the end of the day, all of this is stemming upon the nature of our relationships. So you want to get to a point where you are the best version of yourself, and that you move and operate with a high level of integrity, and that you can be relied upon, right? And so that you can be the friend to, you know, saying that your friends need, and hopefully the same as them, you know, saying for you. But also, that's, you know, as the saying goes, how you do anything is how you do everything. So this is going to stem into how you do business, right? Because if you have integrity in how you do your interpersonal relationships, your close relationships, and this stems into your business, now you are somebody that the community can lean on, because whatever your business is designed to solve whatever problem, they know that they can consistently go to you to solve that problem, and they're willing to extend their hands and give you money to solve their problem, because and now you're building stronger relationships with the community, and that's what economics is based upon. It's not simply having technologies or money, because we had economies before money. It's about quality of your relationships. And so,
you know what? I wanted to ask you in reference, because you brought up Burkina Faso a few times, and I know there's some current events with Abraham Traore. Are you able to update us on that? I know it's a little off subject, but are you able to update us on what's going on in Burkina Faso?
I don't know what the latest updates are, but we know that they have started a process for which they are relying less on the former colonial bodies for their economic structures, right? So now they have created an alliance, and it looks like there's some other countries that may be joining them soon. And the current alliance with Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. And so that they can pool together their resources to start doing more in-house, the development of their infrastructure, and not having to rely. Because when you rely on the former colonial powers, they use that as leverage to get you to so that they can extract more of your resources without y'all benefiting equally from the extraction of the resources. So he has implemented a number of strategies which helps at different levels of development, you know, and having some alliances with, you know, like even Chinese manufacturers, where they, you know, supply them with the machinery, but everything is still being built by local Burkina Faso citizens and the like, even the clothing. So I saw the other day where they were showing off the military uniforms, and it looks like any other military uniform, nothing special, but it was the fact that it was made by people of Burkina Faso that made it special. Like, you know, so this is an important step that, you know, we've gotten to the stage where we can make our own military clothing, right? And so they're at an early stage of development and agency, and you know they're right now serving as a model for other African states to hopefully come together. The great dream, as far back as Cheikh Anta Diop, is the United States of Africa. You know, so even if that is not fully realized and it's just, you know, local groups getting together, that's still a good first step. So I support everything that they're doing, you know, over there.
And since we're on that subject, as far as 6 months ago or so, where the UN made the decision that Maafa was the greatest tragedy of humankind, can you speak on that?
I don't know too much about the UN's declaration, but you know, because I'm Afrocentric, you know, and so it's like, who cares? We already declared it the most tragic, you know, situation. Like just because you now recognize it, it don't change anything. Like, and I wish that we would stand more authoritatively when we move out into the world and declaring things as is so. So if we already declared that it is the Maafa is the greatest tragedy, it is the greatest tragedy because we said so.
Right.
You know, and we have the facts to back it up. And so the UN, it still centers the UN, and it's like, okay, now they raise, you know, at this point, you know, now I got to put on my Dr. Amos Wilson hat. We have to stop waiting for validation from Europeans and start moving with the understanding of developing and maintaining power and what it means to be sovereign and how to move in the world as sovereign agents, you know, of our lives. And so it is so because we declared it so.
Right.
And we don't need them. If they recognize it, you know, fine. You know, and we're not saying that, you know, we live in a global space and we got to interact with people. So there's discourse, there's dialogue, but at the end of the day, it got to be the Black people declaring what is for Black people in their space. And so that's just what it is.
So what would you say is the biggest challenge to the movement, and how do we overcome them?
It's always going to boil down to ignorance. It's misinformation. It's ignorance, misinformation, and lack of critical thinking that plagues the community. Because, you know, if you don't have the proper information and you don't have a means, a strategy for evaluating information, you're so easily gullible in terms of being influenced by individuals who don't have your best interest at heart, right? So, you know, when you have facts about reality, you're able to step in and move in a situation or move in the world more authoritatively and confidently than others, right? And so, you know, there's many expressions of our lack of knowledge and information, right? And coupled with the ability to critically assess and evaluate data. And, you know, the Pretendian movement, the FBA movement, the Hebrew Israelites, the Nation of Islam, tribe, you know, we the lost tribe of Shabazz, you know, type stuff. It all distracts from the reality. Now it'd be different if they just said, you know, yes, we are African people, but this is what I choose as my, you know, operating paradigm. You know, I understand the history and they can cite it, you know, and so now at this point it's just a personal choice. That's something totally different versus you trying to argue that we are the Hebrews, right? And that the Mexicans and the Indians are all part of the Hebrews. And so because now you got to think critically, well, how did this large population get here from the Middle East? You know, what were the large boats? What were the shipping? Where did they ship from? And why did all the light-skinned ones end up, you know, over here in the United States, but all the dark ones were in Africa? You know, to be brought over here in the quote-unquote slave ships, right? So then you have another conflict of the Pretendians, some of them who also believe they are the true Hebrews as well. And so how are you native to this land and been here for hundreds of thousands of years, but you're also a Hebrew Israelite where they existed over there in the Middle East? This is where critical thinking comes in, right? And so like you have people saying silly stuff. For example, that it's comical when you say it out loud, but that continental African people can't grow afros, right? There's a group of people making this argument, trying to distinguish themselves as FBA from the continental Africans, and saying, you know, we not them because they can't grow afros, and that we only started calling ourselves African American as a result of Jesse Jackson in 1985. I'm like, we have documentation. There's a book written by an anonymous author who just called themselves the African American in 1782. Not only that, the free people of color, when they created institutions, they called themselves African, and they named their institutions the African. That's where the A in the AME church comes from, the African Methodist Episcopal Church.
Right.
You know, when we joined Freemasonry, the first lodge was the African Lodge, right? You had only a little bit later, in like the early and mid 1700s, did you start to see African American, because they wanted to not like negatively distinguish themselves, but just it be known that we're the Africans who are born here in America versus the Africans who stayed on the continent. This is where the phrase African American comes from, right? And it was later shortened, because we just fly with language, to Afro-American, right? And so in the 1600s and 1700s, you will see our organizations and newspapers being called African American, African this, Afro-American this, all the way up into present. But because, you know, this group of FBA people don't like to read and don't know what primary sources are, you know, they believe an anonymous TikToker who says, you know, Jesse Jackson created African American. You know, when Malcolm X is at his funeral, when what's the actor's name who read the eulogy to Malcolm X?
Oh, Jesse Jackson.
It wasn't Jesse Jackson. He played in the.
Shock.
He was in the movie.
Shock.
No. He's an actor. He was an elder then, but yeah, he was even in the movie. He was in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, the old man.
Cobb. The Cobb.
No. Read eulogy of Malcolm X. Ossie Davis. Why I couldn't remember that.
Oh.
So if you read or listen to the speech, he calls Malcolm X, you know, of course, our shining prince, but letting us know that he was known as the Afro-American. Remember, he died in what, 65?
Something like that.
So how did Jesse Jackson, you know, come up with the term African American, and then build not a spaceship, a time machine, and go back in time to Malcolm X's funeral and have Ossie Davis call him an African American? You know, it's the lack of knowledge that prevents us from understanding and moving forward. And so there's information out there, but we choose to create myths about things. And so, you know, that's one major that I see. It's an issue of access to quality information and the ability to assess qualitatively the information.
But most people are not scholarly.
Ashe.
They Google it, and whatever Google comes back with, that's what they go with. They're not going to dig deeper to find out, what is this all about, and where did it come from? Like you're saying, what does this word mean exactly? Most people are not scholarly.
But that's something that we have to
true.
get back to, is this developing this unsatiable appetite for knowledge and wisdom. Because when you develop that in our youth, they grow up consistently seeking information and quality information. And so we've gotten to a point where many of our people don't see the benefit of learning. Like, I look at old photos of African kids in the Americas with no shoes on, going to school, learning in a shack. And this is the classroom they existed in all day. There's no air conditioners at the time. There's no electric fans. There's no heaters.
Open the window. That was it. Open the door.
All to learn. Like, we had, like, that was part of the culture. That was part of the elements that would, probably be the steering wheel, right? Saying, or the gasoline, this unsatiable hunger for knowledge, information, and wisdom. That has to be the basis, of the culture. Otherwise, you're not going to have people, like we should get to a point where the stereotype is that Black people are too smart. That's a stereotype that we want. Like, when you see, you think of Japanese people and Chinese people, regardless, you don't think anything about communism and all that. The first thing we think, oh, they must be really smart.
That's it.
Ashe.
So, you're looking at us like we must be really dumb and ratchet, and that's not the stereotype we want.
Right. And so TV, movies, and all these different things put a bad, rap on us. Yeah. And you know what the old saying is, if you don't want them to know, put it in a book.
Yep. We may have to expand that into, put it in a podcast, put it in a film, put it in a video game. Like, there's many outlets, and then lead them to the books for more details. We just got to be more tech savvy and creative and getting the message out.
So normally when we start the Post-Maafa Reconstruction, we begin by showing the project that MelaNation is working on, which is an app. Now, the app has over 400 pages of state-of-the-art features. One of the features is courses where people like yourself can create courses, find students. It could be free, you can charge for it, and it's all done through the app. So generally, when we start these sessions, we go over the prototype downloaded to our phones already, just to show the quality, because it's top quality. But what I wanted to bring out is the fact that we do have the ability to create courses, right? Now, that being said, what projects are you currently working on, or do you have available for the community?
Right now, I'm just working on a book, 2 books. One is titled Paths to Ma'at, Essays in Honor of Dr. Mubabingi Bilolo. And it's an edited text, so I have a couple of chapters in there. A lot of the chapters I've translated from French into English. Dr. Mubabingi Bilolo, so I'm trying to get more people familiar with him and his work. And then other chapters are from colleagues of his that have submitted chapters, in honor of Dr. Mubabengi Bilolo. So that I also had to translate from French, into English. One I had to translate from Spanish, so I don't know Spanish all too well. So I had to go through some other means to get that translated, as well as an article that Bilolo wrote in German. But nonetheless, we translated all that, and so that should be coming out by the end of this year. And then the other one is the text I mentioned, Introduction to Kimoyo, and Kimoyo being the term that I use instead of African spirituality, because the concept of Kimoyo, in my opinion, articulates better what is actually going on when you say African spirituality. And so this text will introduce you to the fundamentals of the concept of Kimoyo, and then examples of how this is expressed in different African communities, so you can get a gist of what that means. So now you get the underlying essence of what it is, instead of religion and spirituality, from which you can't help but understand it from a Western construct, using those terminologies. So, but outside of that, there is, and speaking of courses, working on a course with a sister out of New York, on that's focused, but this is for her group. But it's my lesson, so I'll be teaching it and having the online courses for it, dealing with the Pert and Heru, or the so-called Book of the Dead. So we're going to go through the entire Book of the Dead. So that's what that course is going to be. I have 2 courses on my website, but those are being revamped, and the whole website is being revamped, so it's down now. So even if you go to it, nothing's going to show up. But I'm also be working on an app to accompany a set of cards, a deck of cards, or flashcards, I should say, that I'm developing, which goes into my research of hieroglyphics and African languages. So I'm taking some of the major concepts and words in the MelaNation language, and the symbols and or deities that accompany them, and that's going to be the focus of one of the cards. But what you're going to learn in the process is not only the hieroglyph and the transliteration for it, but in African language equivalent, but also because in linguistics you have to show a pattern of correspondences. So you'll not only get whatever language I'm using for that card, you'll also get 3 other examples, because the ancient Egyptian language, they didn't write out their vowels. They only showed up with the consonants. So you see the same consonants in sequence that'll be different words. So for words that had the same consonant sequence, I can show the same corresponding sequence in a modern African language. So you'll get 3 other examples. So you'll kind of learn a little bit about historical linguistics. You'll learn how to pronunciate that hieroglyph in a modern language. And so the app is going to be a kind of digital version, of that, which would encompass certain kind of learning games. So there's multiple reasons why the cards in the app are being developed, but one of the major reasons is because I'm in the spaces where I'm always arguing with folks on the Africanness or the ancient Egyptians. So they'd be like, oh, y'all some West Africans. Y'all have nothing to do with ancient Egypt, and none of that kind of stuff exists over there. I'm like, you must don't know Africa. You must don't know me and what it is that I research. So I'm showing West and Central Africans and their descendants that, yes, is significant in historically, because we find it in the monuments and things in the papyri of ancient Kemet. But those ideas and everything exist in your native language and culture, or the cultures in which you came from. And not in the sense that, like, okay, you know, there's a word for honesty in their culture and there's a word for honesty in their culture. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the word they use for honesty in their culture exists in your culture, and this is how it's pronounced. So you can pronounce ancient Egyptian words using your modern living language for the exact same word. So that, as I mentioned earlier, like when you say the Ankh symbol, that's not how it was pronounced in ancient Egypt. But if you speak Tree or you speak Kikongo, you would know the word Inkwa, which is the word for life, man, person, which has the same association in ancient Kemet. But that's not enough. That's just me saying stuff. That's trust me, bro scholarship, right? And we don't do trust me, bro.
On that note,
you know, so that's why I show the other examples, so you can prove that this is the cognate for it, because now you have the methods to show that these in fact are the same words, because they belong to the same correspondence set, right? So I'm teaching.
let me ask you a question in reference to that.
Go ahead.
Because I do see similarities in English and from ancient Kemet. Like we say sunset. I don't have the scholarship behind it, but I recognize the similarities when we say sunset and the concept of set being the darkness. Is there a connection there?
No, because, and that's one of the things that we have to be careful of. Those of us who study languages, who do historical comparative linguistics formally, we know to look for those lookalikes. So we try to avoid the lookalikes. So there has to be a way for us to critically examine the data and show that this was in fact a true cognate. So that's why you have to show a series of regular sound meaning correspondences between the terms. As a matter of fact, I can kind of show you something in that vein real quick, if I can share my screen.
You know, something you said, I don't remember what it was now, but it reminded me of Ka and Ba. I don't remember what you said though, but those two words popped in my mind.
If I can share my
one
screen.
moment, so I can.
No problem.
Let me go back to my setup here.
Want to say happy belated birthday to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Lizzie and I had birthdays this month also.
All right. Well, happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you.
Are you in the Leo camp, or are you in the earlier Cancer part?
Earlier. I'm 7/7.
Okay. So you're not too far from my brother. I have the one that's after me. He was, I have to get his, is either the 7th or the 10th. And I know that's a big difference, but that's his birthday. Because a lot of us have birthdays in this time span. So you get mixed up, because my dad is the 5th of July. I'm the 30th. I have a cousin that's the day after me, on the 31st. And then my youngest brother, his birthday is coming up on August the 10th. So, you know, he's in the Leo camp. And so it's just a lot of us that have the same either month of July, or just, you know, in that short Leo window. But whenever you're
I'm
ready.
attempting to get my internet going so my laptop would actually allow us to share, but I'm having problems with that. So we may not be able to share
Oh, okay, no problem. I just wanted to, those one of those things that it's better to show than to state. But regardless, you know, so with the app, that's what we're doing. We're going to show you how to prove that when I say Inqua in Kikongo or tree, I'm saying the same thing as Ankh in ancient Egyptian. And so it forces you to not look at Egypt as an isolated place and culture, that it exists within a larger African context. And so while every community may not have had stone pyramids, because they could have lived in a savanna or lived in a rainforest where that doesn't exist, they still have the culture. They have the philosophy, they have the underlying terms. So we're not copying, we're not borrowing anything from the ancient Egyptians. We already had it. So they inherited it from the same mother culture that we inherited, you know, our terms and concepts from. So that's the one of the bigger goals of having that, you know, to put Egypt in its proper context and to show people that, you know, because a lot of times they be like, y'all focus on Egypt so much. You know, why don't y'all talk about West Africa and Central Africa? I'm like, one, you haven't read our works, because Egypt's always in the conversation with West and Central Africa. But, and then—
You know what?
Go ahead.
I might have a workaround. Miss Lizzie Woody, Osir is attempting to share. Are you able to share the information that he's putting up? She should have access to be able to share your screen.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. First of all, welcome to the show. I'm sorry I missed the beginning. Now, where do I go? Just tell me. I'm sorry.
So do you have it up already to share?
Yes.
And then if she could see it, she should be able to see that.
She should see.
So he wants to share his screen, and I don't have access to my laptop.
Whoever has admin rights, you'll have to click on it to bring it up to the screen. And so there you go. So you know, I use StreamYard as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Miss Lizzie.
Appreciate it. So this is going to be interactive. So briefly, so you see what I have a table up here, and just to let you know, y'all, there's feedback from one of y'all's mics. So the mic may be too close to a speaker or something like that, or listening from two devices. But so what I'm showing here is a linguistic pattern. So I have a table here with 3 columns and 4 rows. And so the first row is just the name of the language, which is Proto-Bantu, which is a academic reconstruction of the Bantu languages. Then we had the ancient Egyptian, and then we had the consonant sound correspondences in the 3rd column. So if we look at the first row, for example, we have a proto-reconstruction of a word, bidet or bede, right? Which means breast or teat or nipple or whatever. And then we have in ancient Egyptian, we have this word bin-ti. Now remember that the ancient Egyptians didn't write out their vowels, so we don't know what the vowels are in the ancient Egyptian words. So to help the viewing audience, I have highlighted the consonants that we are comparing in red. So we can see that in the first consonant position, we have the letter B as in boy, and bravo, and bounce, right? Like you bounce a ball. But the second consonant that I have highlighted in both words are different. So in the Proto-Bantu, it's the letter D as in David and dog. But in the ancient Egyptian, it is N as in Nancy or noodles. All right. So when we start looking at these other words, we see a pattern, right? So we go to the second or the third, technically the third row, but the second information row, we have this word bade, meaning stone. And then we have in the ancient Egyptian, ben, which is a sacred stone. And the word is reduplicated. So that's why we have ben, or ben twice. So we see the same pattern, B in the first consonant position. And in Proto-Bantu, we have D in the second consonant position. But in the ancient Egyptian, we have N. So we see the same thing in the third row. We have badik, and that I separated the suffix, the ik is a suffix that is reconstructed for this word, but the root is bad. But then we have in, which means flee and fear. So verb and a noun. And then we have binu or binwa, to escape, to depart, right? So we see this pattern, and it allows us to make predictions. So, you know, underneath the table, you see that I have this formula. So I have Proto-Bantu BD informs or corresponds to Middle Egyptian BN consonant sequence. And we have to do it this way because we don't know the vowels of the ancient Egyptian. So we have to we have to focus on the consonants, right? Because those are the more stable phonemes of languages. So since we have a pattern, we can make a prediction. So there's this Proto-Bantu word bad, meaning to shine. What do y'all predict that the consonant sequence is going to be of a corresponding Egyptian word for Proto-Bantu bad, meaning to shine? What do y'all predict? Any one of y'all can answer. Hello?
I'm sorry, I was muted. Is it going to be the BD or the BN?
Oh, yeah, that's
what I'm asking y'all. So I have bad in Proto-Bantu, right? And the Proto-Bantu word is ba, meaning to shine, here at the bottom. Based upon the pattern which we see up here, what do y'all predict for the Egyptian equivalent?
So it's going to shine. What's the one for shine?
It's going to be the word for shine, but what consonant sequences is going to have?
So
BN.
All right, so that's y'all prediction, right?
Not mine.
What is yours?
Oh, BN, escape, to depart.
No. So this is the three examples that I've shown here. This is the logic for what we're going to predict, you know, here at the bottom. So for each word on the left, there's a corresponding, each Proto-Bantu word on the left, there's a corresponding ancient Egyptian word with a similar form. They're not the exact, but because they repeat, there's a pattern here. So I'm asking you, what is the pattern? So if there's a BD consonant sequence in Proto-Bantu, what is the pattern in Egyptian?
So that'll be BN.
Correct. So if I give you a word in Proto-Bantu that we haven't examined yet, you should be able to make a prediction of the form in the ancient Egyptian. So I have bad here with the consonant sequence BD. You should predict that the word in ancient Egyptian should have a BN consonant sequence based upon the patterns which we shown here, right? So this is exactly the case. So the ancient Egyptian has a word, wubin, to meaning to shine, right? So I put the consonants in a different form here so that you can see. So where in the where B is in Proto-Bantu, there's a B in Egyptian. Where D is, there's an N in Egyptian. But where the vowel is, we don't know what the vowel is. But we can, it's possible that it was an A sound. So we could say Waban in terms of pronunciating ancient Egyptian. But there's also this W prefix here. So we can show patterns in that, right? So like, and we have Wabin, meaning to rise in ancient Egyptian. In Chiluba Bantu, we have Mubanda, meaning to ascend, to mount, to rise. So is there a pattern where ancient Egyptian W corresponds to a Bantu Mu? That's what, that's the kind of work that I do. So I'm showing here Wadeh, to bear fruit, to ripen. And it corresponds to Mu Nguka, to be right. Wahem, report. Abnormal corresponds to Chiluba Mukuma, report, noise, sound of a gun. Wagim, to grind, grain. And then we have in Chiluba Mukanda, to pound. So not only can we do that for the roots, we can do it for the grammatical morphemes. So I'm just showing y'all to show that, when the app that I'm creating, if I was to say that Bod means, it corresponds to Egyptian Wabin, meaning to shine, on the separate part of the card, you're going to see this correspondence set. So you can show and prove that this is in fact the case, that Wibin, meaning to shine, is equivalent to Proto-Bantu Bod, meaning to shine.
Right.
And so
and I know it's not scholarship, but when I hear bad meaning to shine, I'm gonna go to, that's what we say now. I'm bad, right? I'm shining.
Yep.
I know that's not scholarship, but you know what? It sounds like there's a connection there.
But what you did essentially is a phenomenon that we call in linguistics paronymy, right? And this is the belief that two words that sound alike must be related in some way. And that is what created most of ancient culture. Like, in terms of its cultural motifs and things. Words that are linguistically separate, because they sounded alike, the ancients tried to synthesize them in a way that now you have this new emerging concept. Like there's an article that I'm writing, that I've written for the Bilolo book, where we're talking about why the ancient Egyptians and other Africans wear the leopard skins, right? So the leopard skin comes about as a result of a word that sounds like the leopard that means king or power. And this is why priests and kings wore the leopard skin, because they were in synthesis with the word leopard, and so they did what you just did, the bad, even though it means to shine, and in Proto-Bantu, bad in English, means terrible, but we use it to also mean something good. And so, and we can also use it that, in a shining context,
exactly.
Like there's an essence, an aura about you, what I'm saying, because you are excellent at what you do, or like something that so and so's bad, like Michael Jordan's a bad man when he's on the court. Well, we could say that a sister is bad, what I'm saying, like, but it's not. She has bad characters that
she's shining,
extremely good. Like she's bad. So yeah, I understand it, you know, in many ways, but yeah.
All right. So how can people contact you?
Well, they can at the end of August they'll be able to go to osirmhotep.com and visit my website. It should be up by then. But in the meanwhile, you can just hit me up either on Facebook, I have a TikTok account. I don't frequent it that often. I also have an Instagram account. I don't frequent it that often, but you can catch me on them every now and then. So you can reach me there, or you can go to YouTube. And so just typing in Osir Imhotep or Imhotep 1906 or 06, and it will my name will come up on any one of those platforms. So I have a page.
Ashe. So the last thing we generally ask our speaker is just to speak to the audience as far as the advice that you may have or whatever is on your mind.
I don't know if I have any advice per se, but I have been lately diving into my personal genealogy. And as much as I am a historian strictly in the BC era, you know, there's more important history and information that is currently locked up in your family. So talk to your mother, record conversations with your mother and father if they're still living, with your grandparents, aunts and uncles. Ask them about names of family members, experiences, whether they're good or bad. You know, document it all. Put together a text about your personal family history and pass it down to your children and let them know about the legacy and the mistakes that they made and the goals and vision that they had for the family for which they can carry on. And so, you know, all of this ultimately is for the continuation and the stabilization of Black family. So when you have Black love and when you have Black family, you know what I'm saying, that's when you truly have Black power. And it goes back to the nature of those relationships and developing and maintaining those relationships. Learn how to be a good father. Study how to be a good father. Study how to be a good husband for the men. Study how to be a good mother. Study how to be a good wife for the ladies. Because what we need at this point is more intact families that are pulling their resources together to generate opportunities for generational wealth and the like. And, you know, you need to know how to select, you know, a mate. You need to learn what to expect as y'all grow and change perspectives and how to live with one another and to how to handle disagreements with one another. Because what goes on in your household affects me. And we need more strong family households and dynamics so that we can have more stable communities and that we can have more stable and strong-minded and loving people in the communities so that we can build an economic system and grow to be able to develop the resources and the necessary protections to fight against successfully against those who seek to harm and oppress us. But as long as your relationships are strong, you know, you will have what it takes to survive into the future.
I wanted to jump in really quick because you mentioned the sentiments that you're putting down right now. That's what MelaNation is all about, and we have financed what you're talking about. We put money towards allowing people to document their family. We have a family tree, and it's going to be interactive where they can communicate with their family. They can build the tree up together on the actual web page. And we have the dating site as well, because you're saying community starts at home, and we need to learn how to select our partners correctly. So we've actually invested financially in those programs that you're talking about. If I was at the studio where I normally am on Wednesdays to produce this podcast, we'd have went over the whole thing. It's immaculate. It's beautiful. On Wednesday, when this actually airs, we are going to show it to the public. We're going to show, and actually, I'm going to send you the prototype. So as soon as this is over, I'm going to send you the link to the prototype. You'll be able to see the family tree aspect, the dating aspect. And it's because of what you're talking about, because community starts at home, and we need to build our family structure, understand that aspect, and we need to be able to select our partners. I just wanted to jump in there while you were talking to the community. Sorry, go ahead and continue.
Oh no, I was done. That's you know, I don't know if that counts as good last words, but that's what I'm personally been engaged with, you know, more frequently later, and getting in touch with family members, and you know, learning about my family in Louisiana and in Texas. You know, I didn't even know we had that many family members who stayed in Houston when I was young. You know, while I was there, and even as an adult. So not until I was an adult, you know, after college, did I discover some of these family members. But you know, tying it all together, at the end of the day, you know, we just want to enjoy each other and enjoy family. We understand we got to work and do things to put food on the table, but at the end of the day, we just want to love on our family. And you know, all of this, whatever, however fancily we articulate it and create technologies and stuff for, at the end of the day, that's all it's really about. And just living our life and growing old, you know, with the ones that we love, and seeing them develop and shine, and being able to brag about the people that we know personally, you know, in our families and in our friend circles and stuff. So that's what we, you know, we're all collectively, whether knowingly or unknowingly, we're fighting to do. And you know, I just want to make my small contribution to that stabilization, and hope we all, you know, work together in a way that this is realized at a greater extent for our people.
Ashe, and Ashe. Miss Lizzie Woody, would you like to do your closeout?
Okay, my closeout, I would say, is a lot of things that we're talking about today. We've heard before 1,000 times. So my thing is always, how do we resolve those issues? And I feel that MelaNation plays a part in this, because this is where we're galvanizing people to come and join us, to see what we have to offer, and allow people to fit in where they fit in. Basically, you know, I'm amazed at, you know, what I've learned today and the options that we have as far as our culture. Those things we lack, because I'm not going to put a label or anything on it, because. So, as I said, we are aware of our issues. We are aware of our lackings. Let's see how we can fix it together, in other words. And thank you for being our guest today. That's it for me.
Ashe. It's Jean-Pierre.
Well, I wanted to say this segment was really interesting. I like the idea that Osir, Imhotep, is bringing information on how to read the hieroglyphics. How do you say that? Hieroglyphics? The glyphics. But anyway.
The MelaNomics.
Yeah, I'm so interested in that. I mean, before I wanted to learn to read Hebrew, but then after watching a guest that we had here a couple of weeks ago, it really got me to thinking, because he said that he was studying different religions, and all those different religions took him back to the Bible. And I was like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have heard him say these things, because now it's got me thinking, because the pyramids were here long before the Bible, and there's things that are in the Bible that they were in the pyramids. So now I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So anyway, I'm going to have to dig deeper, because I really like being a Christian. But then, as he said, all the different religions took him to the Bible, and all the different religions came from the pyramids. So what does that say? Oh, and then I was looking at Uma's pyramid, where it has the going forth by day. And I was like, oh, I wish I could read what it said, what they have written in there. But so now I'm going to be able to, because I'm going to make sure I follow you and get that information. But I want to thank everybody for being, to be here and continue to come so you can get more informed like me. I'm just so happy to be a part of these conversations. And thank you so much, Osir. Yeah. And everybody, come back again. Have a wonderful day, evening or night, whatever time it is.
I was going to say quickly that I have a few friends and colleagues who teach how to read and write the MelaNomics, and that's their focus. So I'm a little bit more advanced than the average, but for those absolute beginners, that's what they do. So they learn under some of the best. So like if you ever heard of Dr. Raketti Amin, she's a PhD out of Chicago, and got a degree at the University of Chicago, the Oriental Institute, with a focus in Egyptology and linguistics. And so that's what she taught. So she taught my colleagues, Brother Sanjetti and Brother Rujaru. So anytime someone wants to learn the hieroglyphs, I usually shoot people to them. I do something that's more, kind of a combination of language studies with the linguistics. With the hieroglyphs. So, but I don't necessarily teach you how to read it per se, outside of the ones that are the focus of my correspondences. But I definitely link y'all up, and maybe they could do a lesson, for y'all every now and then, so you can see. But I was gonna say, because if you know the history of the Hebrew alphabet, it comes out of the MelaNomics. It literally, there's scholarship on this, books written on how the Hebrew script comes out of the ancient Egyptian MelaNomics. Yeah. And then how that was borrowed from the Greeks, and that became the Greek letters, and then that further morphed into the Latin alphabet, which we use, all around us right now. So even though you're typing in Latin alphabet, you're still typing hieroglyphs, because that's where they come from. So they come from hieroglyphs to Phoenician and quote unquote Hebrew, and from Greek to Latin, and that's how we got the letters. And so, but it's a whole different conversation once we start talking about the borrowings of the Bible from Africa. But I don't want to disrupt the space-time fabric at this time.
Yeah, we could probably go into that forever as far as the Hebrews coming out of ancient Kemet. I just wanted to say that, yes, you brought up peace to Brother Sanjetti. Brother Sanjetti is a teacher of mine as well. I took one of his courses as far as the hieroglyphics or the MelaNomics is concerned. He's a great teacher as well. So, I just wanted to bring that out. That being said, Mr. Imhotep, You've been phenomenal. You're definitely welcome back on the channel any time. I'll definitely be reaching out to you. I'm not sure if I sent you a link to the prototype already, but if not, I'll definitely send it over to you again. The project that we're working on, we're going to continue to develop it until it's exactly what the community needs. And that being said, I'd like to say thanks for watching. You know, we're here every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. In the meantime, in between time, please reach out to us on Facebook or reach out to us on MelaNation App. Is there anything anyone else would like to say before we end our program?
Do we have to end right now?
What I would like to reiterate, you mentioned Dr. Joy DeGroot earlier, and her slave journey is very interesting. So her name is Joy DeGroot. I don't know if you all, the gentleman mentioned her.
I'm not familiar with Joy McGrew.
Here's your reminder. Drink 8 ounces of water.
Alexa.
Yeah,
all right.
She wrote the book Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. She earlier form of the text, she went by, I forgot her married name, but she had divorced, so she went back to her maiden name, DeGroot. And but yeah, that's the name of the text, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome.
Right. Ashe. All right. Well, it's been great. And again, we're going to be airing this on Wednesday, so that's when everyone's going to be able to view this session. So other than that, everyone have a good night.
Okay. Thanks for coming. I'm sorry, Imhotep. Make sure you come back again.
I will. All right. And I apologize, I can't come on Wednesdays, but because of my my work schedule and school schedule, because I also have to read and grade. So I have my own assignments because I'm back in school myself, and then I also grade assignments and things. They have to be turned in on Wednesday. So you have a lot of students that wait till Wednesday to turn the stuff in, and I gotta, grade them by a certain time. So like Wednesdays and like Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays are always the worst days for me. So I have to do things on the weekend. Right?
I'm so glad you came.
Well, we're hitting on Facebook. I'm on Facebook all the time, so I think we've connected.
You're on Facebook?
Yes, and so it'll probably come under the spelling Osir Imhotep that I'm probably the most active on, but I also have Osir Imhotep on there. And the reason why I have these two spellings and pages is because the old one got hacked, and I didn't get access to my old account for a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
So while that was being sorted out, and me having to prove that I am who I am, I created the Osir Imhotep Facebook page, and so I kind of go back between both. If you find the other one, either way it goes, it's good. That's the reason why it's spelled two different ways, because of a hacking incident on Facebook. So
Yeah, my original page got hacked as well, so I understand how that goes.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, and of course I couldn't use the same name.
Mine was hacked too, and I reported to Facebook, and they said it wasn't, nobody's on my page. But it wasn't my profile page, it was one of the pages under that was hacked.
Okay. Let's see.
Mine got hacked as well.
There's a lot of hackers out there.
But all righty. Well, I do appreciate y'all, and I look forward to revisiting it on Wednesday, and and staying in touch. So I'll talk to y'all.
Peace.
And goodbye, everybody.